conversation.
Let's join Kola Ologbondiyan now in our Abuja studio. Kola Ologbondiyan is National Publicity Secretary of the PDP. Political parties are preparing for elections in Edo State and in Ondo State, and even this weekend there will be local government elections, we're told, in Cross River State. Now, we'd like to discuss all of this with Kola Ologbondiyan to ask him about how prepared the PDP in particular is, and also other issues of national interest. Kola Ologbondiyan, National Publicity Secretary, People's Democratic Party. Welcome to the morning show.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Leila.
Yes, good morning. Good to have you with us. Thank you very much indeed. Now, INEC has announced a timetable for gubernatorial elections in Edo and Ondo State, September and October. But the process would, of course, start by June, July. This Saturday also, there is going to be, we're told, local government elections in Cross River State. Now, how prepared is the People's Democratic Party beyond the guidelines for party primaries that your party has released? And also, this is election in the time of COVID-19. And INEC, the National Electoral Commission, has released a document, guiding the elections. What's the reaction of the PDP to that document in terms of its content? And do you think your party is also prepared to follow those guidelines, and whether those guidelines are adequate enough or not?
Thank you very much, Dr. Abati. Let me begin by saying amen to your prayers on Kogi State in respect of the situation of COVID and testing in that confluent state. So I say amen to your prayers that when the testing begins, it doesn't become like Kano State. But having said that, I have read through the policy document of INEC, and I've had discussions with the National Organizing Secretary of our party, Colonel Austin Akobondu, retired, who is in charge of elections for our political party. And I think largely we are satisfied with the document policy of INEC. But we will continue to work as a political party in respect of elections with the policy document of INEC. And where we have challenges, we are prepared to revert back to the Electoral Commission to point out those challenges. But as things look out now, particularly in the areas of adopting the essentials of COVID-19 protocols in the processes of election, I think that is totally acceptable. And for us as a political party, it's not going to be a difficult thing to achieve. So I've said that. And in respect of elections, we are very prepared and we are very ready, both in Ondo and in Edo State, for the primary election and for the subsequent gubernatorial elections in both states. And I say we are ready because as I speak, we have started a sale of expression of interest form and expression of a collection of nomination form. And as of this morning, no fewer than 3 aspirants on the platform of the People's Democratic Party has picked forms already in Edo State. Ondo State, we are going to begin the sale of forms on June 8th. But as we are aware, we have already started sale of form in Edo State, and it started on May 20, and it's going to run through May 29. So for us, as a party, we are ready. You also asked questions bordering on preparedness to follow guidelines. And I have said that we are very prepared as a political party to follow the guidelines as established by INEC.
Mr. Ologbondiyan, thank you very much for that. But let's speak about that a bit deeper. There are public fears with regards to the guidelines that INEC has put in place for elections. Public fears that these guidelines will be flouted and these guidelines will not be followed. Would you say that these fears are valid? I mean, we can look back at patterns. Let's take, for example, the rally that happened in Oyo State just before the lockdown that was highly controversial. When you see events that happen politically on that scale, you already kind of know, or you already kind of predict that really and truly guidelines will be flouted. Would you say that that is in line for citizens to think that?
Well, for us in the People's Democratic Yes, Leila, for us in the People's Democratic Party, we are very prepared to follow the guidelines. And as you know, Nigerians are more aware today than the time in which you have brought into the discussion in respect of the Oyo rally. Today, Nigerians are more aware about the challenges of COVID-19. Today, Nigerians are more responsive to the challenges of COVID-19. And as a political party, we have already initiated the COVID-19 protocols, even in our respective secretariats. And as such, I can assure you, and I assure Nigerians through you, that the guidelines concerning respect for the protocols of COVID-19 will not be flouted by the People's Democratic Party. And if you have read through the policy document of INEC, it even made a provision for a situation where you can have outside the election area, you can still have people observing social distancing outside that area, so that those who will be inside the election area will complete their own process, go out, and those who are outside will be able to come. I think that if you take a critical look at the policy document of INEC, and if parties, I'm aware that the People's Democratic Party will abide. If other parties are prepared to abide by the guidelines contained in that policy document, to a large extent, we can have election.
Well, let's talk a bit about the political situation in Edo State. Now, there is crisis in the APC. The APC in Edo State is factionalized. But at the same time, the PDP is also factionalized in Edo State due to disagreements over zoning formula, which senatorial districts should produce the gubernatorial candidate, and also even over the emergence of the current chairman of the party in that state. Now, there is a third side to it. There is also talk about the PDP working on the plan in case the incumbent governor doesn't get the ticket of his party, the APC, to hand over the PDP ticket to him. Would you like to shed some light on this, despite the fact that you say 3 persons out of the 4 contenders on the platform of the People's Democratic Party for the primaries have already obtained the nomination forms? Is PDP looking in the direction of Obaseki just to pick him up in case his party does not take him? What is the plan?
Thank you very much, Dr. Abati. The People's Democratic Party, like you know and truly do, is a very democratic political party. And because of that, if you have Nigerians who have interest to run election on the platform of our party, and if you consider the personality, the capacity, the political ability of such a Nigerian, and he wants to come to our party, we have a process of a free, fair, and democratic electioneering internally in our party. So for such a person, if he believes that he can win in the primaries, he could be allowed to run election in the party. However, having said that, as I speak to you now, the National Secretariat of the People's Democratic Party have not had a discussion in respect of bringing in the sitting governor of Edo State, Governor Obaseki, into our party. But I am not also foreclosing a possibility where there are discussions at the level of the state in respect of this. But having said that, what I can assure Nigerians is that the People's Democratic Party will conduct its internal election through a very clinical democratic process, and any candidate that emerge from the process will be generally accepted by a majority of the members of our party and Edo people. But also having said that, you also raised the question concerning divisions in the People's Democratic Party. I want to assure you that we have no divisions in the People's Democratic Party. You know it so well, Dr. Abati, that election and even party politics is about contestation for power. And when this arises, we have our own internal mechanisms of resolving and ensuring that we go into the election as one indivisible political party. And I am sure that these processes are at work in Edo State. And as such, we are going to have a successful outing in the election.
Mr. Ologbondiyan, thank you. Now, we'll come back to discussing Edo and Ondo elections in the course of this conversation. But just very quickly, I'd like to get your opinion on something, because, of course, we also know that in Cross Rivers, the local government elections are going to happen this Saturday. Now, although Cross River is said to be COVID-19 free, many people are, of course, worried because not enough testing has been carried out in the state. But that aside, the APC, through its Cross River chairman, has reportedly stated that the APC is not going to participate in these charade of an elections because of the limited amount of time that was given to people to prepare for these elections 5 years after the elections not even holding. What is your take, and what is that take of the PDP?
Well, I believe that, let me first state clearly that the National Secretariat of the party has its limitations in respect of the conduct of local government election. We provide the logistics in the area of forms and submission of the nomination. But in the election proper, we have our limitations. But having said that, I believe that the governor of Cross River State and the state Independent Electoral Commission will be prepared to ensure that the procedures concerning COVID-19 protocols are respected in the election. I can say that much. I'm also aware that there's no testing yet in Cross River State. And I'm also aware that the governor of Cross River State is insisting that they started the processes of the protocols, and as such, they do not foresee a situation where they have COVID-19. Well, I'm not in Cross River, and I don't have my facts about Cross River as we speak now. But I believe largely, and going by the expressions of the governor to the public, I don't think that they will compromise the procedures of COVID-19.
Well, Kola Ologbondiyan, just for purposes of public enlightenment, you said earlier on that the party is already selling expression of interest forms and nomination forms in Edo State, and will soon start in Ondo State. Can you put a figure to this? How much does anyone who wants to show interest in becoming governor or deputy governor needs to pay within the PDP at this time to be able to even get an opportunity?
Well, for us in the People's Democratic Party, the expression of interest form is 1 million naira. And the nomination form is 20 million naira. But we also have gender sensitivity in respect of sale of forms. Women who are running an election on the platform of our party pay only the nomination fee. So if Leila, for instance, is from Edo State and he wants to aspire to be governor of Edo State on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, it will be paying just 1 million.
It's still too expensive for me. It's still too much. It's still too expensive.
To participate in the election. And if Dr. Abati, who has tried this before, wants to run again in Edo State, for instance, he will be paying 21 million to achieve that. But having said that, I think by and large, and looking at the challenges of funding, particularly for a party like the People's Democratic Party, I do not consider the nomination fee as too high. I don't think so.
And what would you say the PDP is doing, though, Mr. Ologbondiyan, to really and truly overcome these challenges when it comes to funding? Because we've been talking about nomination fees in elections for donkey years, and of course, we're trying to see ways in which we can move beyond that. So what progress would you say the PDP is making to move beyond these days of all these nomination fees and heavy, heavy, heavy funding that goes into elections?
Well, first and foremost, Leila, let me say that I do not think that our nomination fee is heavy in the People's Democratic Party. Even the governing party is selling forms at 22,500,000 or 21 million. Or is it 22,500,000? And they are not even considering gender sensitivity in the sale of form. The best they could do is to offer 50% to the women. So, and you cannot compare that to us in the People's Democratic Party. But concerning general funding, You know, the law guides the processes through which you can raise funds. And as a very disciplined political party, and as a party who, based on its past experiences, has come to realize a huge respect, that there's a need to continue to have a huge respect for the rule of law. I don't think in the area of funding we want to sidestep what the rule provides. We raise money through sale of forms. We raise money through sale of our constitution. We raise money through sale of ID cards. And we also get support from members in accordance to what the law provides for. So that's the way we raise our fund, and we aren't going to disobey the rules.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, the People's Democratic Party has been very critical of the Nigerian government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly at the federal level. At the state level, you have also signed a number of statements alleging, for example, that there are plans to impose a state of emergency in Rivers State by the federal government. But beyond criticisms, beyond objections to some of the steps taken by the federal government on COVID-19, has the PDP even made an effort to come up with some kind of policy input in terms of how COVID-19 could be managed? And has the party made any attempt whatsoever to provide alternative ideas beyond press statements that just seem to discredit the federal government?
Dr. Abati, it's very strange that you're asking me this question. Truly strange. And I say so for very obvious reasons, Doctor. Doctor, from the beginning, before the emergence of COVID-19 in Nigeria, when the advanced countries were suffering the impact of COVID-19, we advised the federal government to come out with stringent measures, particularly in the areas of our borders and the airports, to ensure that we lock up our own country and disallow this COVID-19 from coming into our country. First and foremost, Dr. Abati, let me establish a fact here, which I believe you are also aware and you know of. The federal government under President Muhammadu Buhari has absolute disrespect and a manifest arrogance towards the opposition. So nobody takes the opposition, whatever we say, whatever idea we have, whatever suggestions we are bringing, they have no space for it. Though sometimes they later go back to it to implement those same solutions that we have provided. But having said that, Dr. Abati, you also recall that we advised the federal government that we cannot assimilate in totality the procedures of the Western world, that we should have our own homegrown methodology of fighting COVID. For instance, given our own culture as a people, complete social distancing is never going to work here because we are a communal people. Nobody listened to the People's Democratic Party. Nobody considered our suggestion. When the lockdown started, we raised the question, our economy is based largely on the ordinary people, the uncaptured tatase seller, the vulcanizer by the street, the tomato the sellers of the perishables, whose total capital were no more than 5,000 or 10,000. And if you force them to stay at home for 2 weeks, how are they going to run their economy? Nobody listened to us until the lockdown began to manifest through protests by the ordinary Nigerians. Nobody listened to us. We advised the federal government that for companies, businesses, that there should be waivers concerning taxes, there should be reductions concerning interest rates, that we even advise the federal government to discuss, to ask the Central Bank of Nigeria to discuss with commercial banks on these issues. Did they listen to us? We demanded that Given the crash in the oil prices in the international market, bring down the pump price of fuel to assuage the pains of Nigerians. Did they listen to us? When they were going to listen, how much did they remove from the fuel? And as we speak today, how much are you buying fuel in the pump station, in the fuel stations? So it will be wrong, and Dr. Abati, with due respect, I think we just asked this question for the sake of asking, to say that the People's Democratic Party had not made solutions. We had made solutions severally, and we will keep making suggestions on solutions to the President Muhammadu Buhari administration. But one assurance we have is that a government,
well, Kola Ologbondiyan,
in whose administration,
Kola Ologbondiyan, let's take a quick commercial break.
Let me make this point.
Let's take a quick commercial break. When we return, you will make the point. Well, okay. Time, you know. Okay. So when we return, you will make that point. We'll be right back. It's still the Morning Show. Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Still with us is Kola Ologbondiyan, National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party. Kola Ologbondiyan, you said you still had a point to make about the PDP's position on COVID-19. Please go ahead.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Abati. So we even went further to demand for homegrown solutions, to advise the Presidential Task Force to empower our researchers, our epidemiologists, to look into this COVID and see whether, looking at the flora around our nation, we can even produce our own homegrown medications that may even serve the world, just like Madagascar has done. But what did we see? The giant of Africa was now reduced to a beggar, who will now go to Madagascar to go and beg for agbo that is everywhere around you on the streets of Lagos there.
Herbal concussion.
That's what we went to beg. That's what we went to beg for him. Although they have come to say that no, they didn't beg for it.
It was a donation, yes.
It was a gift. So and honestly, for us, we believe, and we have said this, that the responsibility of the PTF should not be limited to just appearing on prime television and telling us and giving us figures about the number of people that have been infected, about the number of people that have died, and be telling us pathetic stories. We believe in the People's Democratic Party that the PTF has a responsibility to find solutions. We have said that. Dr. Abati, there is nothing that is left that we have not said to this government. But like I said, for a government in which all they do, you were a member of FEC in the past, and during your time, FEC was not reduced to discussion on contracts only. A fact that all they do is to go and fight over sharing of loot. All they do is to go and fight over who will dominate one office or the other. All they do is to go and fight over political interests. You expect them to be able to provide the proper leadership. It is unfortunate. For us in the People's Democratic Party, we know that we have our own shares of the blame. But there's nobody in Nigeria today, and we will continue to be honest with Nigerians, that ever thought that our country, our nation, the giant of Africa, can be reduced to this level, as we have witnessed under this All Progressives Congress and President.
So in terms of, I mean, you've given us like your side of the story in terms of what you want to criticize in terms of measures and approach and methodology of the current administration to the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. But I'd like to also ask you then, Mr. Ologbondiyan, is there anything that you can commend in terms of Nigeria's efforts against the fight against COVID-19? Sorry, in the fight against COVID-19, that your party can actually commend that this administration has done? Because, I mean, there's a lot that we see around us that at the same time has also been quite commendable. Or are you saying there is nothing at all to commend here?
Lila, what are you asking the People's Democratic Party to commend in the role played by the APC and the federal government under President Muhammadu Buhari in the fight of COVID? What are we going to commend?
So you think that there is nothing at all?
Is it the alleged sharing? No, Lila, let me make the point.
Go for it.
Let me make the point.
Go for it.
Lila, is it the distribution or the alleged distribution of 20,000 to the underprivileged that you cannot point to anybody within your neighborhood that benefited? Is it the management of the lockdown that you're going to talk about, or that we are going to commend as a party, or the killing of ordinary Nigerians by security officers during this time that we are going to commend under this federal government? What do you want us to commend? What are we going to commend? Is it the failure of leadership that we are going to commend under this government? If you ask the ordinary Nigerian out there to commend this government on the fight against COVID, I want to assure you that they will not listen to you.
Well, Kola, it's a matter.
We are closer to the people. We are not locked up. We are not locked up in any fortress in the villa. We see the ordinary people every day. We relate with them. We know their pains. We understand their pangs.
Well, Kola, I'm sure
we cannot take sides with the government and fight against them.
I'm sure that APC spokespersons will have a different version of the story. But you started by commenting on Kogi State and COVID-19. But another development in Kogi State was that the Election Petition Tribunal, attending to the petition by the PDP candidate in the last election in that state, affirmed the election of Yahaya Bello as the governor of Kogi State. Your candidate has said he will go to the Court of Appeal. But you are a major stakeholder in Kogi State politics. What's your reaction to that decision by the Election Petition Tribunal?
As a political party, the People's Democratic is proceeding on appeal on that judgment. And as a stakeholder, I consider the judgment as a miscarriage of justice, as a parody of everything that justice represents. It is known and it is clear to every Nigerian that what happened in those 7 local governments that we are contesting, and I mean Ajaokuta, Okene, Okehi, Adavi, Kababunu, my own local government, Olamaboro, and Lokoja, what happened was not election. And we have asked that the court, in the Court of Appeal, what we are going to Court of Appeal to go and ask for, is that the Court of Appeal should uphold the judgment of Justice Oviageli, who reasoned and in his wisdom declared that the votes cast and claimed to have been won by Governor Yahaya Bello were not lawful and valid votes. That's what we're asking for. For instance, Dr. Abati, let me give you a practical example of what happened in 1 or 2 local governments. In Adavi local governments, we all know, and INEC will attest to this, though they abandoned their evidence at the tribunal. When you put down the manual accreditation, and you put down the candidate accreditation, both the manual accreditation and the candidate accreditation should align. Because if 10 people were ticked on the manual accreditation as having come in to vote, the same 10 number of people should appear on the candidate accreditation as having appeared to vote. But what did we have in Adavi, for instance? You have on the manual 30,000 voters accredited. You had on the candidate accreditation 33,000 people appearing. Now you know what they now did? They now summed up the accreditation of the manual and the accreditation of the candidate and claimed that they had 66,000 votes. Is that not a manifest fraud? In Okene local government, if you look at the manual accreditation, you have 40,000 voters. If you look at the candidate accreditation, you have 70,000 candidate accreditation, meaning that 30,000 people were added to the candidate accreditation, which did not appear in the manual accreditation. And now, everything that I'm telling you now is in the documents of INEC, is in the electoral manifest of INEC. You know what they did at the end of the day? They added the 40,000 in the manual accreditation to the 70,000 in the candidate accreditation and declare a total vote of 113,000 votes for Yaya Bello. Who does that? That's a manifest fraud. And let's not even talk about the violence that characterized the election, where a police helicopter was brought to come and disperse, shoot tear gas and guns at the voters on the election day. What manner of election is that? Where people were killed, and all these were demonstrated in the tribunal. Dr. Abati, you are a lawyer. All these were not dumped on the tribunal. They brought video. In fact, they even brought the video of an INEC commissioner, Shoyebi, where he declared that there were more bullets in Kogi election than votes. And to even sum up, that Shoyebi is an INEC commissioner. He made the statement openly in public. It's on record. This was demonstrated in the court, in the tribunal. And the total number of ballot papers that were taken, electoral materials, including ballot papers, that were taken to these 7 local governments was in the region, I cannot remember the exact figure now, but it was in the region of 240,000. You now declare a result of 320,000. So the number of votes that you fraudulently secured was far more than the number of ballot papers that INEC brought for the election, and which are still in the custody of INEC, and which the tribunal ordered you, Yaya Bello and the APC, to go and inspect and examine, and also gave us the same order to go and inspect and examine. We went there, we inspected, we examined. You ran away, you didn't do that.
Well, Kola Ologbondiyan.
And in the tribunal, let me make this final point, Dr. Abati. When at the tribunal,
a minute,
our forensic expert demonstrated all this. They asked you to challenge the report. You said they should give you. You said the tribunal should give you 2 days to go and put up your cross-examination. When you came for the cross-examination, you did not attack these ballot issues. Rather, you were questioning the capacity and the responsibility and the wisdom and the knowledge of the forensic expert, which at the end of the day you failed to achieve.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leila. Thank you, Dr. Abati.
Thank you.